Sam, and I'm making a quick update here. I'm going to be talking today about something that's kind of a little odd. Not really, but sort of. It's the Kundalini and astrology. What is the Kundalini? How does it relate to Vedic astrology? Pretty interesting subject. You see I'm down here, a lot going on here by the beach. Weddings, and there's a weatherman over here doing the weather. Anyway, so we're going to be talking more about the cosmic weather and what's the Kundalini as it relates to yoga and astrology and all that stuff. So the first thing to say is that as it relates to the Kundalini, it's actually the lunar nodes. It's actually Rahu and Ketu. The simplest way to explain what they are
right now, it's kind of weird
astrologically is Rahu and Ketu. If you don't know what the Kundalini is, I'm going to explain it in a minute from a yogic perspective, but to see which part of it is related to the astrology, it's Rahu and Ketu. So first of all, to understand what the Kundalini is, it's the deeper energetics of consciousness that is running through your mind and through this existence. What happens is it's the part of us that's not really connected to time, place, person, and this world of the senses. So what does all that mean? Sounds pretty crazy. Don't worry, I'm going to land it here. I'm going to land this plane. But the Kundalini is actually things that are really not of this dimension or of this world of form. Those who have dabbled in meditation and yoga will recognize the Kundalini as the part that starts to get activated once you go deeper into authentic spiritual practices. There's a lot of confusion because when people say things like, oh, my heart chakra is open, it's the chakras that are connected to the Kundalini through the different energy points. And there's a lot of illusion around this because people think the fact that they've had some emotional experience or that they're very emotional, then that means, oh, you know, my heart chakra is more open. Well, first they say chakra. If someone says chakra, or if you're saying chakra, please stop. The word is chakra. And if you want to say it more correctly, it's like chakra. Anyway, it's a hard CH, not a sh. So if you're a yoga teacher or anything, stop saying chakra, it's chakra. Anyway, it's very easy, especially in this modern world of people dabbling in pseudo-spirituality and astrology and all this, to think that the chakras or the chakras are open. The chakras correspond to different parts of our awareness, like the throat chakra is the one that, in its highest sense, connects us to the power of speech and discrimination and higher wisdom. It's related to Mercury. It's called the Visuddha chakra. And again, this is divine, sacred discrimination, which is much different than human speech and human relationships and the worldly relationships with all these things. The heart chakra, or the Anahata chakra, has to do with Venus and divine love. A great saint has the heart chakra open, which means they love everything. They don't see themselves as a distinction. You could even go up and kill them and they wouldn't care for the most part. It's not that they wouldn't care, but if it meant hurting you or killing them, they would probably say, well, do what you want. I'm not going to hurt you because my heart chakra is open. That is the heart chakra being open. Manipura chakra, which is related to Mars, which is the next one down. The navel chakra has to do with divine courage, never backing down, but Divine courage doesn't mean fighting. It means being above the fight, right? Swadhisthana chakra is about pure creativity. It's also called sometimes called the sex chakra. Of course, sex. It's about creativity, okay? And it's the one right above the tailbone, or the Muladhara chakra, which is about survival and it's the first chakra that opens because it's the one where we first transcend the illusion of form. So first there's Manipura, which is transcending the illusion of form, which means the illusion that you're just this physical body. Then is the Muladhara chakra, which is the transcendence that you are a creative being, or your individual creativity. Then they sort of get more subtle, like I said. So the point is this: the true nature of the Kundalini in its highest sense is when it starts to open chakras. And the first chakra that opens is the Muladhara chakra, which is the one that allows you to understand that you've never been born and you've never died. When you transcend the illusion of the physical body, that's the first gate that has to open, the first door that has to open, the first chakra that has to open. Until that chakra opens and you're still connected to the illusion that you're this physical body that's going to die, and I don't mean it's some idea in your head, I mean you've had the experience of the deathless. You've experienced the deathless in you, and it's an established state. Not once in meditation you felt at peace with everything and then came back. That doesn't mean the chakra is opened. It means you had a glimpse of something beyond just the physical body. That little glimpse, when carried through with purpose, devotion, dedication, discipline, that little glimpse leads to the chakra actually opening, and that's the first piercing of the veils of illusion that opens the Kundalini. Until that happens, and again, it doesn't mean it can't close again, but until that knot is untangled, and it's, by the way, it's called the Brahma Granthi. The Brahma Granthi. There's 3 Granthis, there are 3 knots along the path of the Kundalini. There's the Brahma Granthi at the Muladhara chakra, which has to open. Then there's the Vishnu Granthi, which is right below the Anahata chakra. And then there's the Shiva Granthi, which is the doorway into the Sahasrara chakra, or the state of Nirvikalpa Samadhi, which is the final emancipated state. The Brahma Granthi has to open first, which is the Muladhara chakra. When that Brahma Granthi opens, then you start on this path of transcendence. Until the Brahma Granthi opens, there's all kinds of experiences that we have in yoga and in life. And those experiences are valid and they're legitimate, and they refer to states of consciousness and awareness that are stages of evolution that eventually, hopefully, through discipline, practice, leads to the Brahma Granthi opening, and that first chakra opening, the Muladhara chakra opening, so you can transcend the illusion of birth and death. And then, where I go there, I don't really feel like having everybody hear me say this. Somebody's kind of walking up. Anyway, there's a really nice, take a look at this walk. I'm on this nice little platform now, here. But until then, the Kundalini is still active. So when we usually speak about the Kundalini, again, it's some kind of mystical, metaphysical concept, when actually it's really not. It's literally the energy that's coursing up and down the spine through the astral body, through the mental body. And it's obscured by our karma until we start to open the chakras, and then the Kundalini actually opens, and that first knot is pierced, and our energy starts to rise into those higher levels of consciousness. Lord Ganesha is the protector of the Muladhara chakra, And the whole story of him guarding Parvati, who was naked and taking a bath, is to illustrate the power or the Shakti of the Divine Mother or the Shakti of the Kundalini and how it's guarded. People say, well, why can't it just open on its own? Why can't I just experience the full Kundalini? The reason is because you can't handle it yet. And you can't handle it until you approach it with enormous devotion, through enormous practice and sadhana and removing of obstacles, all that stuff related to Lord Ganesha. And then you say, please Ganesha, can I see the mother? And he's like, no, she's naked, you can't see it. And then eventually what happens is when your devotion becomes so pure, you don't even need to ask Ganesha, and you stop asking Ganesha, because if you're asking, you're still not purified. And the Kundalini opens out of grace, not out of force, not out of will. However, sometimes the Kundalini does open out of force and out of will, particularly when we do things like drugs. When people take a lot of drugs, especially like LSD, hallucinogens, ecstasy, all these crazy drugs, and then they go out of their mind and go crazy, what they're doing is they've opened the Kundalini, or they're trying to open the Kundalini in impure ways. In many ways, you can understand the Kundalini is just the power, that hidden power of God that runs into those higher dimensions of consciousness that we're all trying to get. This is why it's also related to Rahu and the hypnotic desire to want to get the power now. Because once we learn, wow, you mean there's a power? You mean if I take this drug, I can feel this expanded consciousness and jump and feel it and expand my awareness, even though it's a drug, even though it's happening through a drug, there's a point of us that says, well, if it happens through the drug, then give me the drug and I'll take it and I'll see what happens. And that's fine for a while. Drugs will do that. And there's certainly something to be said for those experiences that are drug-induced, to at least give us a glimpse of something that we might not have been able to have without the drug. However, if we just depend on it, on the drug, eventually we're going to go a little crazy. And so when people are trying to do drugs and expand their consciousness quickly with chemicals, they're trying to awaken the Kundalini, which is, again, that life force that does not exist in this time-space continuum naturally. It doesn't mean it isn't there. Well, it's actually not in this time-space continuum. You have to go into it and connect to another dimension of time-space in your heart and consciousness. And you can do that either through pure means or impure means. Of course, it's not recommended that you do it through impure means, because you can go out of your mind and go a little crazy. So the pure means is through meditation, sadhana, and awakening that Amrit, or that immortal nectar, in the mind. And that story of Rahu and Ketu and the churning of the milk ocean and all of that stuff, and Rahu taking the drink because he wants to taste the immortality as well, even though he's a demon, he's not one of the deities, he's not one of the gods, right? He's tangled up in desire, and then he takes a drink of the immortal nectar. And literally, the immortal nectar is like the Kundalini, you might say, and says, I want the drink. I don't care if I'm too immature to understand it, give me the drink. And the gods didn't want him to have the drink because they know he's a demon, and they don't want to unleash a demon on existence. A demon who's immortal, who can't be killed, right? So they cut his head off. So the head goes around trying to devour and eat and get the power, but it's a counterfeit version of the power. So the other part, so the thing to understand is this, and this isn't written anywhere. This is my interpretation or my understanding of, in some ways, what Rahu and Ketu actually are. I've never shared this before, so this is the first time actually anybody's going to hear it. It's true. Even all my students that listen to me yak on and on. People say, well, which part of the Kundalini is Rahu and which part is Ketu? It's a good question, and I've had to think about it. And again, I'm not saying I know this for sure because it's not written anywhere. Of course, most important things aren't. The texts give you indications of things, and in order to find these things out, you know, people have this notion that yoga and astrology, even though, you know, they did originate from the same systems, but you don't have great yogis who are great astrologers who can put these things together. It's people like me and you who study yoga and study astrology and study Sankhya philosophy and all this, who have to put these things together. So when people sometimes ask me, what text did you get that from? It's like, well, it goes to show that you've never looked into a text, because you realize that the sacred texts don't make these kind of connections. You have connections from the Upanishads and from the Yoga Sutras and from the Jyotish text, and we have to put them together. So the thing I'm going to say is this, with a big prelude. My feeling is this: Rahu is the part of the Kundalini that has to do with the world and the obscuring quality that I just described, where we're disconnected from that deeper life force. That's actually what Rahu is. And exhausting his energy, exhausting that quest for the external drink that we think is going to give us the power. That's actually, Rahu is the world of illusion and the world of Maya. And that's what, this is actually what the Kundalini is as well. It's also the goddess Maya. And by the way, Maya is the goddess. The thing that keeps you fascinated with the beauty of the world is the goddess Maya. And Rahu is that beauty of Maya and that illusion that keeps you trying to find the answer in the world, so that eventually you exhaust that search and the Kundalini opens, and the entire part of the Kundalini that's beyond the world is Ketu. When we connect Rahu and Ketu together, I only have one hand here. When we connect Rahu and Ketu together at the Muladhara chakra, and it opens, like I just said, with Lord Ganesha there guarding the Kundalini, guarding the what's called the Pingala Nadi. We have the Ida and the Pingala Nadi, and we balance them to get the Sushumna Nadi to open. When we do that, that's the realm of Ketu. Everything not of this world is Ketu, and Rahu is everything in the world. And the Kundalini, the internal invisible part of the Kundalini that's not of this world, is the Ketu part, and the Maya, the illusion of power, the chasing, obscuring part of life, is the Rahu part of the Kundalini. So you want to understand, they're both the invisible forces. Rahu and Ketu are also invisible forces that eclipse the mind on this subconscious level. And this part of Rahu, which is the Kundalini, is the part that's chasing that metaphorically, metaphysically, trying to get that power. And then when all that calms down, the external fascination with Maya, the external fascination with getting the power stops and calms down, and we withdraw from it and turn inward and focus like a laser on the breath and the moment and the simplicity of those things. What happens is the Kundalini opens. I say this also because the god related to Ketu is Lord Ganesha, who sits at the Muladhara chakra and opens it and reveals that hidden force that's literally not of this world. And you also want to understand that, you know, the kingdom of God is on the head of a pin, minus, you know, the head of a pin divided by 1,000,000. That's how precise and focused you need to be to open, to authentically open the Kundalini. It's not some, you know, like, you know, to open your chakras, to open that first chakra. You literally transcend death to open the first chakra. If you still think you're this body that's walking around that's going to die and you're scared, you haven't opened the Muladhara chakra. Because, and until you do, you're still in illusion. It's very simple. All the time I do readings and people say, well, how do I do that? You know, What can I do to overcome this? There's really only one answer. Sit down, shut up, and meditate. And it's the hardest thing in the world, because our mind is crazed. Our mind is constantly cycling through Maya and illusion and those things of Rahu, that stress of the world, that's trying to get the answer. What's the answer? What's the answer? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? It's actually Rahu, eclipsing our mind on a very deep level. And it's the part of, and it's still the Kundalini, but it's moving in a random, crazy way, like the serpent that's biting us. What we need to do is calm down all of the external fascination and tune in and focus like a laser, which is Ketu. Negate everything. And the other reason why it's Ketu is because, again, Rahu is the head and Ketu is the rest of the body. Realize something. You're so fascinated with this life and this world as if it's like the only thing that's ever happened. You know how many lifetimes you've lived? You know how old your soul is? Do you know that most of your entire being is in Ketu? Meaning, Ketu is everything that preceded this lifetime. Just like if you were to cut your head off, your head might weigh 20 pounds, the rest of your body might weigh 150 pounds or whatever it is. So we put so much emphasis on this lifetime. Again, the fascinated gaze of Rahu in this lifetime going, oh, this thing, and lose ourselves in all of the games of the world. And it's a small portion of our soul. Just like the level of consciousness that you live at is like this. Once that Kundalini opens and Ketu connects to all of the other kingdoms of consciousness within you, that's the true power, the true source, the true you. By the way, I just looked up and saw the moon. It's a good omen to end it here. So the Kundalini, Rahu, Ketu, and the Kundalini, this has been recorded a few days, maybe about a week after the recent solar eclipse. So we're Kundalini and Rahu, Ketu'd out in our mind right now. Let's see if we can get the moon somewhere up there. Did I get it? Am I getting it? Where is it? There it is. There's the moon, right above. And there's the lovely Pacific Ocean. Starting to get dusk. Nice clouds today. The sun just set, I think. So, I hope you like this little impromptu talk on Rahu, Ketu, and the Kundalini.